Okay, to keep us on time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody for joining us today for the Cloudcast webinar. It's from Iserv and our partners at Spinifex IT. The topic today is tips and tools for developing a smart SAP payroll business process. My name is AJ Whalen. I'm with Iserv, and I am going to be joined today by two speakers, one from Iserv and one from Spinifex IT. Before I do the introductions and we get started, just a quick logistics and housekeeping slide. All the attendees are on mute, and we will keep that way throughout the session today. It avoids any interruptions. The meeting is being recorded, so a link from the recording will be emailed out to everybody who registered after the session is complete. And as far as questions go at the end of the session, you may type in your questions in the questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. That's that box on the right side of your screen that you may have minimized or may still be there. You can type them in. When we get to the Q&A at the end, we'll answer them in the order they were received. And if there's anything that needs follow-up or we can't answer in this session, we will do the follow-up on that after the session. So just a quick intro of the speakers for today. Jeroen Whelans is with us from Iserv. He is the principal from the payroll and program management practice at Iserv, and he's got a number of years of experience in payroll SAP along with ADP, and great experience with Employee Central Payroll, including the P2P integration. So we're happy to have Jeroen here. And Stephen Gallo joins us from Spinifex IT. He's a product architect based here in North America, and Spinifex IT solutions are used by SAP and SuccessFactors customers all over the world. And Stephen will be walking us through a demo and some information about the Spinifex IT solutions specifically related to Payroll Control Center and payroll today. So that's those are our speakers. And with that, I want to go ahead and ask Jeroen to give us just a quick overview of Iserv before we turn it over to Stephen for an intro about Spinifex.
Sure, let's talk a little bit about Iserv. So just a little bit about Iserv. So maybe we're a little bit of a different partner than most of our SuccessFactors partners around us, that we focus mainly on core HR and payroll. So as you can see, these are basically the 5 areas that we will normally focus our implementations as well as the support models on. So if you look, basically for us, the core HR process starts with recruiting and onboarding, to Employee Central, to time management, either through EC or to Workforce Solutions. And then basically ECP payroll for me mostly, although we do some integration with on-premise as well. And then of course, last is the reporting and analytics piece. Outside of that, we do a lot of other pieces around that. We built integrations with MCPO, Workforce Web Services. We build a chatbot integration. Alumni is another third-party product we do the implementations for. So quite a few things around SuccessFactors that we implement as well. Lastly, I think in the top corner there, we're also one of the few partners that actually got the SAP recognized expertise specifically for Employee Central and payroll solutions. And I believe there's only 19 or 20 partners at this point that have that recognized expertise logo. Okay, let's maybe go to the next one. What are our offerings? Oh, you're a little fast there, Steve. All right, what are our offerings? So we basically did, as I said, core HR payroll, and then basically we focus on 4 major things. Basically helping clients basically get a plan together to basically make a roadmap to get to SuccessFactors, either from on-premise or from a third-party system. We either help them with a cloud conversion, and that's either any customer that wants to move from an on-premise SAP HR environment to SuccessFactors. We do cloud checks, where we basically go in and help clients determine the health of their current SuccessFactors system. And lastly, what's been a good seller and actually been more and more into the market is the cloud care piece that we do. So where we basically help clients support their SuccessFactors environments. Okay, Steve, go for it.
Thanks, Jeroen. So as AJ mentioned, my name is Stephen Gallo. I'm the product architect for Spinifex IT. And if we look back at Jeroen's slides, he had a couple different things of helping with implementations. And then, of course, he had a bullet on reporting and analytics. And that's kind of where we got our start. Spinifex IT is a software solutions provider for SAP and Employee Central. And we kind of got our start in the reporting world. We offer a variety of solutions. We're going to look at the reporting solution today, as well as its integration with Payroll Control Center. But we also have document solutions, interface solutions. We have employee copy and clone solutions. And we could do 3 hours of webinars just on those products, but we're just going to focus on one of them today. Some of the things that you might not know about Spinifex is that we are an SAP certified developer as well as a certified partner. That means our code is vetted by SAP to be installed into your system, whether it is an on-premise system or it is any of the cloud providers, whether it be third-party or an employee central payroll specific stack out there. Some of the cool things about us is the largest ECC installation in the world runs our stuff, as well as the largest payroll providers in the world. And the reason they do that is because our core solutions provide gap coverage, and that gap happens to be transactional payroll reporting. You're going to see through some of the solutions today, it's not just payroll reporting, but the tricky things that SAP doesn't deliver outside of the box that people usually have to code for, we actually have solutions for that we can pre-deliver into your system out there. And that's going to do a couple of things for you. It's going to help you get going in hours and days instead of months and weeks when you're doing an implementation. And of course, after you go live, our solutions allow you to quickly implement new process and procedures, especially around payroll reporting and analytics. Back to you, sir.
And Jerome, I thought it would be good to give for you to give just a quick update on payroll processing options and what the kind of the state of the solutions are today before we turn it back over to Stephen for his demo.
Sorry, guys. So one thing I think to understand at this point in time is, so there's SAP, of course, has evolved their payroll quite a lot over the last, I would say, 30, 35 years. So the latest model where we are right now is kind of what you see in front of you. There is, of course, talk about the next gen payroll, which has not really come out yet. So this is kind of where is the most comprehensive outlook of what SAP really does and how it integrates with Employee Central. So SuccessFactors, of course, had to move to the cloud. Much of the HR data is moving to the cloud. What happens to payroll? That basically remains kind of on the SAP on-premise environment. It looks similar, but it is hosted by SAP, and there needed to be a new integration. That new integration was point-to-point. Point-to-point integration came out in 2016, third quarter. We did actually the first, Iserv did the first implementation of P2P for a client, converted them off Boomi. That was before that, the actual integration piece. And we found quite a few interesting pieces there that helped us get the implementations up and running faster and more efficient. And then we'll talk about that a little bit in the next few slides. So maybe go to the next one, Steve. So when you look at a typical end-to-end payroll process, you basically see 4 steps. And I don't think there's any, for any payroll professional on the phone here or anybody that's done SAP payroll before, I mean, the 4 major steps are basically pre-payroll, you execute the gross to net, distributing of pay and third-party payments, and then post-payroll, anything around accounting and reporting and interfacing. And of course, we can discuss a lot about what these bullet points underneath say, but in general, this is what we do, right? So let's maybe go to the next one. So what does that really mean for the workload? And I think that's maybe good to look at to understand where SAP actually can be of some help. And then again, on top, what Spinifex later can also add to that again, even on top of the standard stuff that SAP delivers. So if you look at the actual payroll process, this is kind of the workload across the multiple phases of payroll. Most of the work actually, unbeknownst to most people, is actually going into the pre-payroll piece. Getting and receiving data seems to still be one of the major issues. It's not just a major issue for SAP, I think it's for any payroll. And it's also sometimes when you start seeing systems that start integrating between payroll and HR and how that works together, there seems to be a lot of issues around getting data correct, and with flat files, going back to the source, ensuring the data is correct, etc. So when you look at the overall process flow, you start with 60% of the work is around getting the payroll data ready itself. The execution of gross to net and the downtime around them, etc., is about 15%. The distribution of pay and third-party payments is 10%. And then lastly, there's still some time spent on interfaces, reporting, and accounting that counts up to about 15% of the work. Now, if you look at how SAP basically handles those workloads and where it can help you out, it's basically in the next slide. So I think the first thing is the focus on the pre-payroll. And I think that's where SAP definitely has made some inroads to where it were before. I mean, the payroll engine has always been pretty robust and really focused on the execution of gross to net. That was fine. I mean, SAP had good functionality, retroactivity, etc. They definitely covered more countries than most other vendors. But where actually the SuccessFactors and ECP piece made a big difference is on the 2 pieces that's called point-to-point and payroll control center. The point-to-point integration, first of all, helped SAP basically get a better integration between EC and ECP. It helps me on the implementation time. If I look at an integrating SuccessFactors EC with ECP, I can do this under about 200 hours in general is what I look at. If you look at doing that with an on-premise system, for example, you talk easily about 400 to 500 hours to getting the same thing accomplished. If you talk about then Payroll Control Center, which is kind of tagged along with ECP. It's not officially new because it has been there before SuccessFactors came out, but it is kind of seen one with ECP. There's some additional pieces that have actually been brought to the table by SAP to help you. And the funny part is the focus has really been on this pre-payable process. So what other payroll vendors still will tout how good they are in gross to net and interfacing, SAP really took the tact on looking at where is actually most of the work and where I really get actually most bang for our buck. And I believe when I look at the Payroll Control Center, it can be a very advantageous in the pre-payable piece. So first of all, it can automate your pre-payable process with client-specific, KPIs and also client-specific error handling. And I'm sure that Steve will actually show some of that also in Spinifex, and they built some more tools on top of what SAP standard delivers. The next thing that I really like, and I've seen my customers that have basically deployed this like this as well, is that I can actually move all the payroll errors and have workflows around it. So I can have the payroll manager assign those different things to the actual teams and ensuring that they basically get all the errors done within the payroll. I don't have to run the continuous logs, etc. I can do this through the team. The other piece is the payroll process can be run directly in SuccessFactors rather than having to go between SuccessFactors and then go to all on-premise SAP and seeing the gray screens. I can actually run the transaction graphically through SuccessFactors, and it looks and feels the same. And the last thing that I really like, and that's also a great help from point to point in essence, is you can actually make the data changes that you need for payroll directly on the HR side. Where with other payroll vendors and hooking that up to cloud vendors for HR, you don't really have the opportunity to go back to the root of the problem of the data. And most of the time, you have to hope that somebody reconciles the data after the payroll process. With Payroll Control Center, actually, I can click directly into SuccessFactors and ensure that I actually make changes to the data and get that through. Okay. Now, as I talked before, the other pieces, they have been in place. They have been there for years. Have you seen SAP Payroll before? This is no news, but the execute gross to net, SAP does this for 41 countries right now on ECP. Don't think that's anything better or worse than or less or than other payroll vendors, although SAP, of course, has the unique abilities around retroactivity and working with timelines. The last piece then that I think is still a strong point, and the ALEs are still in place that you can use with the ECP, that's a direct integration with SAP Finance. So basically getting your GL across, et cetera, and using some of the data elements from finance in your actual payroll process, ensuring that you run payroll process on an accurate financial model. Okay, Steve, I would say, let's go to you.
All right, I appreciate it, sir. So what we're going to talk about now is a little bit of background on the solution that we're going to look at today, because what I'm going to show you is we're going to see a little bit of Payroll Control Center. We're also going to see how some of the Spinifex solutions integrate with Payroll Control Center and how we can get your Payroll Control Center up and running faster. If Jerome, as a consultancy, their primary focus would be making sure that synchronization is correct with the P2P. So all your master data from SuccessFactors makes it down to your payroll system. But then after the fact, you still got to validate that certain things are correct, certain policies are right in your company. Find people who are terminated that are getting pay, find people who are hourly people with no hours, those types of payroll checks that people do on the master data beforehand. And that's kind of where PCC comes into play. But to start with, what we're going to talk about today is, just for your background, is because we're going to be in the product, is EasyReporter. Because EasyReporter is it's our original flagship product. We built it about 15 years ago. And it is the engine that's going to drive the policies that you're going to say in Payroll Control Center. And as Jerome mentioned, Payroll Control Center is designed to assist with that 60% problem, right? Figuring out what's up with the master data. And the good news is that EasyReporter has access to all those different master data elements and even payroll data elements that you want to look at when you're processing your payroll out there. So the whole idea originally with EasyReporter is that we have access to all this data, it's one tool, and we can get a reporter document. Well, what we've done is we've taken that technology and leveraged it into Payroll Control Center, because EasyReporter has access to a ton of information inside your SAP payroll system, whether it's on-premise or ECP out there. 15,000 master data elements. It can even pull in fields from Employee Central. More importantly, it is localized in 42 different countries for all the different payroll clusters, custom info types, time data out there, and it is translated into 7 different languages. So global customers that are trying a small little percentage of improvement in your payroll process, we can help you out with. And that's where PCC comes in. PCC is designed to assist you in shortening the time it takes you to process payroll. And what they've done is SAP has delivered an RDS, a rapid deployment solution. But what you're going to see today is that we've taken SAP's RDS and made it better, right? So just what you would need to process your payroll in real time, EasyReporter is a real-time HR and payroll reporting engine. So right when you need to go look at your payroll after it's been run, or even if it's been simulated, we'll talk about the differences in what simulated means in PCC versus simulated meant the old way. You can actually start looking at that data. And for those of people who are on the phone or are existing customers, any of your existing reports that you have with EasyReporter can work inside of Payroll Control Center. All those reports you have that do advanced calculations, figuring out limits, looking at current periods versus prior periods, they will all work. And they're actually going to work in such a way that they're integrated right into PCC. You would never even know that the back end that's driving your policies and your master data checks is actually EasyReporter. It's fully built into the UI. And we have a full-blown RDS. It mimics exactly the SAP RDS that SAP delivers, but I'm about to tell you why RDS is slightly better. But the history of, back to Jeroen's 60% slide, is why did we decide to do this as a company? Because our customers were already doing it. They were just not doing it with Payroll Control Center. EasyReporter has always been a solution where you can go in and check your master data, see if people are missing master data, find employees who are locked after you've calculated the payroll, find people with gross wages over a certain amount of dollars out there. Customers were already using our solutions for that. So when SAP, Jeroen said PCC has been around for quite a while. SAP recently, they made PCC easier and they made the integration for third parties easier. So we jumped on it and said, let's take what our current customers are currently doing, build a nice simple solution so people can get up and running on PCC easier. Because we all know PCC is designed to consolidate all your payroll information into simple, nice visual process steps. But here's the challenge out there. Payroll Control Center is free. The configuration is not. SAP, through their infinite wisdom, simplified the configuration, but all the policy checks, they're still hard-coded ABAP programs. And we've always sold our solutions as you don't need code to make them work. And end users and analysts can build very complex HR and payroll reports without the need for writing ABAP out there. So we decided to build an RDS to integrate with that, because SAP's RDS is not flexible. What do I mean by that? You might have a policy that says, SAP delivers one that says gross wages over $1,000. Well, what if at your company it's 500? Or what if for hourly people it's 500, for salaried people it's 2,000, but for salaried people in Spain it's $400, right? If you had all those different policy checks that you wanted to validate that are outside the standard SAP RDS, you're writing code to get that done, and you're going through the full development life cycle to make that work. So the SAP RDS, it is nice, but it's definitely not super flexible out there. Using something like EasyReporter allows the quick creation of reports to audit your master data, time, payroll, including your posting out there, and it's all going to integrate directly inside of Payroll Control Center. We've also made the integration easy. The configuration, I'll show you a little bit of it today, if we have some time, is actually right through EasyReporter. There's a few steps at the beginning to get the ING set up to accept EasyReporter, but once it's in there, you're not having to do config. End users can actually create and deploy their own policies. When I say end users, the payroll department, to work with Payroll Control Center. And those policies are everything that you would find in the RDS: high net, low net, people missing bank details, retroactivity over an amount. We'll actually look at that one today. And we can do all of your industry policy checks. So automotive companies have different things that they need to look at, especially from a time standpoint. Train, railroads, where somebody worked in the morning, where somebody worked in the afternoon, people where they live, where they work. We can actually rapidly build those things that SAP does not deliver outside of the box. However, SAP does have some rules that are pretty nice, and they integrate side by side. So any of the standard stuff, if you currently are using the SAP standard RDS and you just want to add some additional things using our product, that can work as well. That said, I'm going to get into a live demonstration of Payroll Control Center and the solution. We're going to start start at the beginning for people who have never seen Payroll Control Center, just to get the idea of how Payroll Control Center works. But here's the history. This is our product, EasyReporter. For those of you who are familiar with the product, it's a reporting engine. It has access to all those different fields of information that we showed in the slide deck. And our customers prior would go in here and they're getting ready to run payroll. All right, it's the beginning of the week, maybe it's the morning of payroll. We need to find everybody who's locked for payroll. That could be an example of a report. And customers would run that report and go, okay, there's my 3 people. I have to go open up PA20 now, or go into SuccessFactors manually, open that up if you're on an ECP, figure out what's locked and all that. And that's fine, right? You might have people retroed over $1,000 over a certain pay period. This is a pay period in April of 2018 out there. Then you get your list of people, and then you'd open up some other tools, PC_pay results. You go figure out what exactly happened to this person. Why did this retro occur? Was it a master data change? What wage types changed? And you're trying to figure out what's going on with these people to solve the problem, to see if you can move forward with payroll. What I'm going to show you is that through Payroll Control Center, you can actually look at these things. I'm in the Launchpad. You might be familiar with the Fiori Launchpad. These would typically be tiles if you have SuccessFactors directly in your SuccessFactors system out here, but I'm running it through our Launchpad. And Payroll Control Center is divided into a couple different areas. We have process management, which is where the payroll manager might go in and kick off a certain process, or the payroll supervisor, like the simulation run for the monthly payroll area. There would be people, maybe analysts, who are actually adding the policies, the EasyReporter checks into Payroll Control Center out there. The people who actually manage the errors that the policies pop off, they would go into error management, and there'd be specific policies assigned to them. By the way, that is one of the neatest things of Payroll Control Center, is that you can set certain policies that people are responsible for fixing to always go to them, or on the fly, if something you can't figure out, you can assign the policy to them. We'll see error management today. Process configuration is how you set up your processes. Is this a simulation run? Are we just going to run policies? Are we going to do monitoring? Are we actually going to run live payroll? Are we going to kick off posting? This is where you can figure that process. But for today's demonstration, all the processes are pre-configured. So we're going to go into process management. I have a couple different processes going on out here. We're going to spend some time in this monthly simulation run, and I'll talk to you about that. But ideally, what Jerome was trying to say, in some of his slides before, with this live process, Payroll Control Center allows you a visual way to execute your payroll by maybe opening the payroll area, actually doing the calculation, initiating the policies, which we're going to see in a minute in simulation mode, monitoring, which means figuring out if these policies need to be fixed, resolved, changed, and then of course ending your payroll. You can imagine this is just a very simple payroll run. You would probably have simulations of posting the actual documents in here as well. But this is the idea behind Payroll Control Center. An administrator can come in and start this process, and then they can go run payroll and confirm it and leave notes about the process out there. So there's a log of what was done. What we're going to do is work on a simulation run. And I say simulation with concern in that it's super cool, because with Payroll Control Center now, you can actually report on simulated payroll data. In the past, when you ran payroll simulations, that was just a log. SAP didn't store it anywhere. You couldn't report on the data out of it. So our customers are always doing master data validations earlier in the week, because you can do them whenever, but then they'd actually have to hustle, because they could only check the payroll information after the calc had actually been done before they exit payroll. But in here, I've actually run, let's go back to step 1. There's 3 steps here. I've run a payroll simulation that has been already completed successfully. You can always go in and repeat these processes as often as you want, however often you want during the week, during the day. And then there's the whole concept of the policies, which are the master data and now payroll checks, because we can look at the simulated payroll data. That process for this webinar has been kicked off. And then the monitoring step is currently running. We had 56 alerts pop up. SAP Payroll Control Center does give you some nice little, they call them KPIs, if you ever hear the term. They come with their RDS, just a little tidbits of information. For example, where's the one down here? Total gross comparison. Most payroll managers, they know their payroll. They can look at this and go, oh my God, gross was $5,000, I'm sorry, it was only $5,000 off between this period and last period. That's okay. It's a 1% increase. If you came in here and saw something like 30, you might cry a little bit, and you know you have some figuring out to do, that there might be something off with the payroll. So it kind of gives you a high-level overview, at least for the payroll manager, And when it gets to this step, they can look at it and go, all right, this looks okay. Let's move on. Because ideally, these policies that fired off, you're going to have them assign them to people. And I, of course, assign them to myself. And your end users may never come into process management where we were. They might be in error management. And that's where we're going to spend some time. Because I'm Steve Gallo. I'm a payroll analyst, and I'm responsible for checking out some of these errors. All of these policies were popped off using EasyReports. Actually, this one looks like it was with the standard SAP RDS, but they all work side by side together. You can imagine the RDS comes with 37 different policies out there, and some of them are very basic, and some of them can be kind of tricky. But really, the super tricky ones, most of our customers have to end up doing with EasyReporter because SAP doesn't deliver it out of the box. The one I want to look at is this, is Retropay over $1,000. I want to talk to you about the differences of what SAP gives you versus what we give you. For any policy, whether it's ours or SAP's, you can kind of go in and say, all right, these are the people who had Retropay over $1,000. Maybe we should take a look at them. You can actually assign some information on the screen about the employee, maybe what the amount was. You can even set up solutions like updating master data information. This system is not a SuccessFactors system, so it opens up the SAP payroll system as opposed to SuccessFactors, but ideally it would open up SuccessFactors and you can make changes to it out there. So we do have some solutions. If I didn't know about the person, I could forward this to another team member. If I just look at these people and go, this is fine, I can set this to resolve and move on. Because the goal is for the payroll manager to see all those errors, those 56 that we saw, and see a minimal number of errors to say, all right, we can confirm the payroll and move on. We'll handle the rest, possibly in off cycle. This is the person I wanted to look at, Braden. Braden had a retroactive pay of $25,000. Again, this is for the period of April. He's a monthly employee in the period of April 2018. Let's go take a look. With standard payroll control center, you can kind of drill into the message, and SAP will give you some more information about the employee. You have to do it through configuration on what's going to show up, but you can set up different bits of information about the employee to show. Because maybe based on the message, the fact that he's, scroll too far. The fact that he's in the monthly payroll, the fact that he is where is what I was looking for, that he's a temp contractor, that might matter based on the message that you got. So you can get some information about the employee without having to go into PA20 or into SuccessFactors and looking at the master data. And that's kind of nice. If you want to change anything on this, though, you do have to do it through the config. However, if you're using the EasyReporter solution, this is actually just a report that ran against this person. You can just go change the report, change the field, press save, and it will then reflect in Payroll Control Center. So a couple of points of note here. We make displaying the information into Payroll Control Center, the detail, a lot easier. And you can imagine, depending on the check, this is Retropay over 1,000. You could have something completely different, time entry not included. You might have totally different bits of data. But here's where it gets really good. This guy had Retropay over $1,000 and we know it was that $20-some thousand. Okay, well, what happened? That's where the EasyReporter solution really shines, because we can start to figure out what happened. What you can do is you can actually run reports directly here in Payroll Control Center against this employee for the simulated pay run that we just calculated. For example, let's run, and we can put any report in here. I just put some simple ones for the sake of demonstration. Let's try to figure out what happened to Braden. Why did he have $20-some thousand? This is my wage type drill down report. Let's see what happened here. All right. Okay. Well, it looks like he has a current pay of $12,500. That's nice. He had retro $25,000, which was made up of a retro for wage type 1002 of $12,500 from the last two periods. So we had a period change back in February, or excuse me, he had a change back in February. We might not know what it is, and even your end users might go, we store this wage type on 1,000 different data areas. Where could it have gone? This one's going to be simple for today, but he had a salary change, and that's okay. But where did it actually occur? We can read the audit log that the SAP payroll system supplies out there, so I can actually see exactly what happened. Let's say in February we do merit, so this is a typical scenario, or it's being run by some batch program out there. What we can do is, sorry, this didn't scroll. We can actually see the master data that changed for this person over the period of time. So I can see that his info type 8, his basic pay, which stores his pay information, changed. Let me just scroll here. Okay, scrolling is there it goes. Come on. Right, much better. We can see that he had a change that was effective on 2/1. So back in February, he went from $125,000 in salary to $150,000 in salary. So there was definitely a master data change that occurred. We now know where it was. It helps us track down exactly what happened out there. And more importantly, because I know I made this change, you might see a name in here, know who to contact about it if there's anything awry, so you can try to figure out even further what happened. But we definitely give you the detail of everything that occurred. I do not want to go back out that far without having to drill into all the different screens of SAP, popping all over the place, running a bunch of different reports to make this work. And I just wanted to make sure that you understand it, so when the webinar is over, you can look at it for pause purposes. Just let me get that drill down back up again. All right. So he had a pay change. He went from $12,500. He was making, in those last periods, he was making $10,366 a pay period. He's now making $12,500 a pay period based on his salary change. I won't go through this whole thing. You can leave it up there and reconcile it. But based on his new salary, he had a prior salary of the 1014.16. If you take the difference of that over 2 periods, it's 41.66. Take his April salary, add in the difference of that 41.66, you get the 16.66. He did have a healthcare deduction in this period of $50, which our report shows you, and that gives him his current salary. So EasyReporter I'll tell you exactly what happened. It gives you all the information you need right in one screen. There's my $50 for the current period, all in one shot. And it is simply, the configuration is so simple. For example, let's say your company doesn't do Retropay over $1,000, you do $500. All you got to do is change the report. You don't have to write code. You don't have to go through a full SDLC lifecycle of functional spec, change, test, all that good stuff. You can just go in, change the reports filter. Instead of $1,000, let's make it 500 out there. And there's plenty of webinars on EasyReporter that show you all the other fun stuff that this thing does out there. But I instantly made my change that would have taken maybe a day, maybe 3, depending on developer workload, resources, all that sort of stuff. We can actually do it in seconds out here. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to AJ and see for questions.
All right, thanks, Stephen. So what I'm going to do is just quickly touch on, before we get to the questions, just a reminder, you can type your questions into the question portion of that GoToWebinar control panel. And we've got a few in there right now that we'll get to in a second. But just a quick summary of why that Iserv and Spinifex IT make such a good partnership here. Iserv obviously comes with the knowledge of the implementation, knowledge of the SAP solutions, and really the knowledge of the overall business process and integration. And Spinifex IT comes in with the products and the tools that really improve that and go beyond the great stuff that SAP already provides, as Stephen talked about. So going beyond what that RDS from SAP provides and filling those gaps. And I think it's a great partnership to go and take the people who have done the implementations and have that experience, like Jerome was talking about, and then the company that can add the value in there. And that's why we're here with Spinifex IT today. So I won't read through all of those bullets in that slide, but it's definitely a great mix of the companies, and then together it's a pretty good way for your company to look at optimizing your payroll processes. So with that said, the questions section, I do have some questions in the queue. I'm going to dive right into them so we can stay on time here. First question is, we'll give to Stephen. Do I need a full license of EasyReporter to use the PCC functionality?
No, we have a couple, that's a good one. We do have a couple different licensing options out there. You can get just the standard RDS Payroll Control Center functionality, and then you can change the delivered reports that we give you. In addition, we sell additional licenses that, let's say I have 5 other checks, so I need 5 other custom reports. We give you the ability to create 5 other custom reports if you did not want the full-blown reporting suite package out there. So you can get ER without it, although probably once you have ER, you're definitely going to want the whole thing. Thanks.
Okay, next question, actually this one I think is from Jerome's session, so I'm going to throw it over to him in case he's on mute. I'll give him a heads up to unmute himself. It says, we use Boomi for middleware. Do we have to use P2P What are the benefits?
Jeez. You can remain on Boomi if you want to. The upside of P2P, and we did the conversion of the client I was talking about that did the very first P2P implementation. They went from Boomi to P2P. The replication speed goes up. There's less hassle with it. The integration is direct, and the actual conversion, probably you can do that in less than 2 weeks. So I would definitely recommend if clients, if you have Boomi today, to go to the P2P. All new functionality on ECP, by the way, is only coming out and will be supported only on P2P and no longer on Boomi. So
I think that's a very important point. Yeah. Okay. Next question. I'm going to give this one to Stephen. How long is the typo in here? How long does it take to get the PCC up and running, the product from Spinifex?
Okay. If you want basic PCC turn on, it's a morning with your basis team to turn on all the different enhancement packs and features to get PCC up and running. Once so that's standard SAP. Then you have EasyReporter, which needs to get installed, which is just another set of transports. It takes about an hour for it to run. And then it kind of depends on Blueprint and what you want to do. So we deliver the 37 different checks out of the system. If we're gonna set all that up for you, it could be anywhere from a week to 2 to get them tweaks to the way you want. And then usually in the last 2 customers that we did, there's some additional stuff. So our last customer, we planned 3 weeks. It took 3 weeks and a day to get it done out there. So it is definitely a rapid deployment solution to get up and running.
All right, thank you. Next question, I guess this is for you again, Stephen. What sort of audit trail is there for PCC for purposes of satisfying payroll controls?
Good point. So in fact, it's on our enhancement list. So PCC does have, there's an audit somewhere in there that shows you, like if you go into the steps that shows you what occurred during the process, it will tell you exactly right there during that process. Figuring out after the fact, I believe SAP delivers a report or 2, but we've just had some customers, and not just, they've actually been asking us for weeks now to build the PCC audit log tables into EasyReporter so you can mass report on what PCC did and what occurred out there. I don't have the functionality yet. It is on our roadmap though.
Okay, we'll file that one under the stay tuned. And there's one more question at the moment in the queue. I guess this is also you, Stephen. Can I bring EC master data into my policy checks?
Yeah, one of the things that we have that's nice, EasyReporter through the OData API has the ability to connect to your Employee Central instance. So there's a little setup with some RFCs and some certificates that have to get done. So there's a secure connection between EasyReporter and your SuccessFactors instance. But we do, just like I could drag on first name to the report, I could go get department from Employee Central and bring that on as well. So yes.
Okay. We've reached the end of the question queue. Stephen, if you want to go to that last slide there. Just want to put some contact information up there as Jeroen's information, and we can obviously get you in contact with Stephen if you've got questions specifically for him as well. But I want to thank our speakers for joining us today. If you think of any follow-up questions that you didn't get to ask during this session, please do reach out to us and let us know. We appreciate you joining us for an Iserv and Spinifex IT Cloudcast webinar, and we hope you will join us for another one in the near future. Jeroen, Stephen, thank you very much, and thank you to all who have attended today. This will end our session for today.